Hello. Um, so tonight I was thinking about uh, talking about evil a little bit. I just got these new nails done, which have some evil symbols on them, um, and I think they look kind of awesome. So I've been thinking about it. I've also been running a campaign where all of the players are evil. Some things that define an evil player is they don't really trust anyone. They only really trust themselves. Um, and they they're well, yeah, their motivations tend to be a little nebulous, tend to be very self-serving. They'll indulge in feelings like envy and jealousy and act on those feelings. And they also have a lot of self-doubt, either because they've been put down in the past or because they want to prove that they're right. They'll get into conflict very frequently. And because of that, a lot of the game becomes power struggles. It becomes a little bit less about exploration at some points because their relationships with people and creatures they meet is generally antagonistic, unless that other creature is stronger than them, in which case they can't really bully the creature. So that does change the dynamic and they can play nice usually. However, you can generally tell when a character is evil if when given a like someone weaker than them, how they treat them. Um, if they treat them, uh, if they take advantage of them or they bully them, um, you it's generally that's evil. That's usually evil behavior. It's always evil behavior. Um, so yeah, sorry, I'm distracted by uh, by my designs. Um, so so the kind of evil behavior that I've seen out of players, now you can have good people again will tend to be selfless, whereas evil players will not. They'll act in their own self-interest most of the time. They tend to be very fearful and doubtful. So some of the things that I've seen them do is like take slaves. They have no problem doing that. If the creatures are weaker than them, they'll tie them up and drag them around and use them as bait or whatever other way they're trying to solve their problem. Another thing I see is a lot of mistrust among them. Even when something is said earnestly to them, they'll tend not to believe it. So if someone's begging for their life, that's usually not going to go well with an evil player. They'll pretty much always end the life of the creature that's begging or torment them in some way. Um, they have Oh man, I'm trying to think because a lot of the situations are very complicated to explain in a short period of time. My players have indulged in some magic items that are quite dangerous. One of them is a palantir, which is a glass orb that, when touched, creates a connection between the experience of the player and the experience of an entity on the other side of the orb. And in the case of my game, um, it was a dark god. Um, so when the players touched it, they become subject to the will and the experience of this dark god, who then begins to ask questions and play with their minds and show them visions of either its power or what it can do for them, make promises. And it also gives them some powerful magical abilities. For example, the ability to scry, which is a fifth level spell. It's very powerful. And all of my characters were first level when I first gave this to them. So that's a really big leap. So getting access to that high level spell is a temptation for them. I also gave them access to a book. It's a book of evil. The pages are bloody and covered in black ink and torn, and the words write themselves on the page. Um, so, and this book promises great knowledge and great power, and the cost of being able to access that is the player has to kill a creature of their alignment. So if they're a good player, if the player has a good aligned character, a selfless character, they have to kill another selfless person in the world in order for this book to empty up its secrets. And when it does, the player gets access to a huge number of spells, including raising the dead and dominating evil monsters. So I put this in front of the players, not sure whether or not they were going to take it. And they 100% took it, which was really surprising to me. Because the way I typically play is I want to do the right thing. I want to help people. You know, I want to build a solid team. I want to be motivated by things like love. And that's just not been my experience. So as a dungeon master, it's kind of my job to provide them whatever experience they're looking for, to let them really choose the adventure. So I had this orb show them a vision of a cave, and as they were heading back to town, they saw that cave. They decided to explore it. There was a cave-in the back of the cave. They went through the effort of digging through the cave-in, and beyond the cave-in, farther into the cave, was an underground river with a boat tied up. So I gave them this access point that's like, well, do you want to go back to the town and see what's going on, and maybe those people need your help? Or do you want to pursue this and see wherever it is this thing leads? So that was sort of a tantalizing choice that I put in front of them, and they happened to get on the boat and sail off into the darkness, which completely changed the tone of the whole game. I mean, it could have been an entirely different story. And they decided that they were going to get in that boat and they were going to sail down the river. And they did. And a lot of things have unfolded since that happened. They've met strange and alien creatures who live in the dark, who are blind and can only hear, or like giant creatures that live underwater and look misshapen and strange. People who are like fish, like the body of a man and the head of a fish. Dwarves who have lost their sense of humanity, and like live in a monolithic, like hard-working society where there's no joy, there's no art. So they've encountered a lot of very strange things down here, strange and alien things, and it's also kind of impossible to navigate because it's underground. It's tough. You can't have a sense of direction. There's no sunlight above to show you. So I figured down here I might as well give them someone good that they can sort of have, maybe if they want to still have access to like a positive source. So I had them run into a musician who sort of has a mercurial mind. He's a little crazy, slightly unstable, but and kind and loving, you know. And he's taking care of these two kids, and they also run into one of these like underground joyless dwarves, and the party has had to rely on the two of them as guides to get them through these caves because they're so unfamiliar with how to navigate down here. And these two have lived down here, so they sort of know which way is which way. So the story currently is just them traveling through this endless network of tunnels until they reach their destination, which might be a huge underground dwarven city, or maybe a place called Neverlight Grove, which is like a sort of underground Shangri-La full of glowing mushrooms and mushroom people who live in peace and harmony. with nature. So, so I've put these two possibilities in front of them, um, and the dwarf, uh, wants to go to his city, and the musician wants to go to Neverlight Grove. So while the musician's distracted, the dwarf will say, like, you shouldn't trust him. He's crazy. His people are all crazy. Like, Neverlight Grove probably doesn't even exist. So by putting that doubt in the player's mind and making them question the sanity of this new person they just met, it sets them up later on to not trust him and to betray him, which actually is exactly what they did. They killed him, sort of by accident, and they're still feeling the consequences of that. Um, so I don't actually know where it's going to go. I've never run for evil people before. There's a really interesting book that you can buy from third edition called The Book of Vile Darkness, and that's it's specifically 17 and up, and there's a disclaimer at the front that says that Dungeons and Dragons is intended for fun, and so everything in this book likewise is intended for fun, and if it ever gets too real or seems triggering, you should close it. So it offers a lot of really demonic perspectives, torture, sadism, uh, people who are monsters, who feel betrayed by the world. Um, these are the kind of things that evil seems to be made up of in Dungeons and Dragons. So it's pretty late, and I guess that's all I'm really going to say right now. I'm kind of sleepy. If anything that came up was interesting to you, let me know. I've been thinking about an evil character that I would play. I think he would be a musician who manipulates people, who changes the truth, who puts doubt into people's minds. Maybe an entertainer who likes to spread rumors about people and make them feel insecure. Um, again, I don't love playing evil characters, and at the same time, I know how to do it. So, something to experiment with, and yeah, have a good night, guys.